you for viewing this video, in which I will be talking about part 1 of my Ork's 7th edition Codex review. This series will be broken up into 7 parts, but today I will be looking at an overview of the Ork army. My name is Steve, this is the SDFnet 40k channel, and let us begin. The Ork Codex was one from very early 7th edition. I feel perhaps before Games Workshop had worked out what they were doing with the new layout formats and the direction they wanted to take this edition of 40k. Put simply, it was pre-Decurion, so it suffers against lists that can be drawn from later codexes with the extra rules. This was later fixed with the 2nd edition of the Waaagh supplement, but I will be talking about that book later this month. That isn't to say that Orks are bad, but based solely on this codex, they aren't Eldar or Tau tier power. It is my belief an army of any faction, well played, can make a big difference against even the cheesiest of lists. It is my hope that adding my voice to the plethora of other codex reviews out there and offering my opinions on the book, it might open up some tactics or opportunities for silliness that you might not have thought of. If you are coming to this review looking for the answer to how to make Orks stomp everyone, I'll save you the time and say this will not be the video series for you. I like to play and it's nice to win, but I'm here to have fun. And I promise you there are few armies out there as consistently fun as Orks. In this video, which is the first part in my series where I review the 7th edition Ork Codex, I will be focusing on general army items such as warlord traits, the formations and equipment options. As the starting points of how to build an army, I will start off with your formation options. Obviously, you have the standard 7th edition bound and unbound options. In a standard CAD, Orks do have the advantage over many of their peers, as if you wanted to build a list focusing on one thing, for example a can wall or speed freak list, but still play bound, you have highly customizable HQ options and a very low troop tax, giving you more points to play with on the stuff that you actually want to bring. The first of 2 detachments listed in this book is the Ork Warband, which consists of 1 war boss, 1 mech, 1 unit of knobs or mega knobs, 6 units of boys, and 1 unit of Gretchen. For taking these choices, you get the bonus of getting to reroll your warlord trait via the Boss of the Waaagh rule. The second bonus for this detachment is called Greenskin Hordes. This rule grants every unit with 10 or more models in this detachment Hammer of Wrath in any assault phase in which it successfully charges an enemy unit and the dice rolled for its charge is more than 10 before modifiers. The unit does not need to move the full distance rolled to gain the effect, and losses to Overwatch or dangerous terrain do not negate the rule if it reduces the squad below 10, so long as there were 10 models to begin with. Third and finally, the Stampede rule allows this formation's war boss, if it is your HQ, which it likely will be if you're fielding this detachment, to call a Waaagh each and every turn after the first. To me, this formation is just begging you to field it with the war boss and the knobs as a Death Star, perhaps even in mega armor and in a battle wagon dedicated transport. Throw your mech in there too to prevent your battle wagon literally falling to pieces, and you're set. Then you could either mech up your boys and have 6 squads of 12 boys in trucks, perhaps 2 being shooter boys to provide some DACA support, or you could just go blobs of boys and have fearless blobs that are overwhelming attacks or DACA. Either fielded as blobs or mech'd up, hide a claw on a knob in each squad, and because of your warlord trait you also won't need to worry about a boss pole. I could see both working well. The only difficulty is, turn 1 you're vulnerable. Keep your army hidden, or perhaps off the board as much as possible, but mainly the entire battle plan in this formation pivots around your warlord, so keep him safe. If he is killed, it is a crippling hit to the army, which is why he needs a tasty squad of boys as bodyguard to eat up those wounds for him. The other option in this book is the Ork Horde detachment. The compulsory choices for this consist of 1 HQ and 3 troop choices, with the option for an additional 2 HQ, 6 troops, 3 elite, fast attack or heavy support, plus 1 Lord of War or fortification. So you're gaining 3 extra troop slots and then an additional HQ over a standard bound CAD. The bonus rule for this detachment is Greenskin Horde, which is the same rule I have previously discussed. This detachment to me looks like it's designed for a Green Tide type list. With so many troop slots, you'll be able to field a lot of boys should you choose. Or you could just take 3 squads of Grods and fill the rest of the list out elsewhere and just get 3 HQ choices. I'm not sure if the detachment bonus is worth a damn in reality, but it's a free rule, and if you're thinking of taking 3 troops anyway, why not get free rules? The major drawback is no objective secured, which is a pretty heavy hit for such a troop heavy list. So what if you decide to take the Orc Horde's detachment? How big a deal would objective secured be to your army? Well, now let's take a look at the faction-specific tactical objectives. Number 11, titled More Dakar, awards 1 victory point if you completely destroy an enemy unit in a shooting phase. Number 12 is Gittim Boss, which awards 1 victory point if your warlord killed an opponent in a challenge, or D3 victory points if that opponent was the enemy warlord. Number 13, Stomp 'em Boys, awards a single victory point for a complete enemy kill in the assault phase. D3 if you achieve 3 to 5 squad kills, or for 6+, which if you pull off in 1 turn, you deserve a knighthood for services to the realm for, you get D3 plus 3 victory points. Objective 14 is a tad easier to achieve than 6 or more enemy nukes. For this victory point, you merely need to turbo boost, move flat out, or run 6 inches in your turn. This objective is appropriately titled More Speed, Go Faster. Objective 15 requires you to roll a d6 when it is selected. If you control the corresponding number objective marker on the table, you get, at the end of your turn, you get 1 victory point. The objective is labelled Grab the Loot. Finally, objective 16 is Here We Go, Waaagh! To achieve this, you need to succeed with 1 charge roll of more than 10 before modifiers. You don't need to move that far, just get lucky dice rolls. If you achieve this 3 or more times in 1 turn, firstly, can I have your dice? Secondly, you get D3 victory points. So, as you can see, only one of these faction-specific objectives would be directly impacted by the loss of objectives secured from your troops. The others are a bit more shooty or punchy, or running at things so you can punch or shoot them. Orcs are fun. When an orc warband reaches a certain size, having attracted enough boys, or if there's just too much good fighting to be had, it is collectively known as a Waaagh, presumably labelled after the battle cry of the orcs that is shouted at excessive volumes as they charge headlong at their intended target, with the intention of providing the unfortunate recipient with a plethora of new and exciting body cavities by means of chopper or death gun. So your war boss has gathered his boys and is calling his Waaagh, but the question is, what does your war boss bring to the party? The orc warlord traits are as follows. On a d6 roll of a 1, you get Prophet of the Waaagh, which allows your warlord to call a Waaagh once per game. This allows HQ choices other than war bosses to access this rule. If your warlord already has this rule, i.e. a war boss, all friendly units with the Here We Go special rule gain Fearless until the start of their next turn. I will cover what calling a Waaagh means later, but suffices to say, this is one of those force multipliers that makes a war boss an extremely popular HQ choice. Should you roll a 2 for your warlord trait, you gain Bellowing Tyrant, which gives your war boss a 12-inch aura in which any friendly units can reroll failed morale and pinning tests. Not an exciting choice, but useful on the battlefield. This will become clear later when we talk about mob rule. On a roll of a 3, you get Like a Thunderbolt, which gives your warlord a 12-inch bubble in which all friendly units can reroll charges or run moves. Useful if you're going for that roll of a 10 to achieve the previously discussed tactical objective, or if you really want to punch someone. A 4 gets you Brutal but Cunning, which allows your warlord to reroll a single to hit or to wound roll each turn. This is far from the most useless warlord trait I've ever seen, and in the right circumstances it could turn a fight for you, but it's not anything to write home about. A 5 gets you, yep, you've guessed it, cunning but brutal. This grants your warlord the ability to re-roll a failed armor save or invuln save once per turn. This could be the difference between giving up warlord kill or not, but it's not abundantly interesting. Finally, should you roll a 6 for your warlord trait, you get Might is Right, which adds +1 strength to your warlord's stat line. This is less useful on a war boss, as with a claw he already has strength 10. However, for other HQ choices, this could mean that big difference between strength 8 and strength 10. If your warlord is a war boss and you have the option to, I would probably re-roll this result. Now we have covered your options to build your army in the formations listed in this book, and the buffs your warlord can bring via the warlord traits table, we are now going to look at the options for equipping your army. I'm not going to go through every item in the book. Unit weapons will be discussed in their individual unit listings. I will instead look at the special issue war gear and relics. To begin with, let's look at the special issue war gear. It must be said straight out the gates that orcs have some of the best named everything in any codex, period. It's always a point of amusement reading anything orc related. In that theme, special issue war gear is known as Orky know-whats. A more befitting description could not be hoped for. Anyway, first off we have a boss pole. This item allows you to re-roll the result on a mob rule table, with the exception of the cracking heads result. I will be discussing the mob rule table and its implications shortly. This is useful as trying to keep orcs in line is the equivalent to herding cats. A lot of cats. Very violent cats. Getting a do-over on this could be extremely useful. Unless I'm running the list that gives me unlimited Waaagh, this is a must-have on knobs in any squad that I'd lament losing. Next up is Cyborg Body. This upgrade gives a 6+ Feel No Pain. Useful to have, but as we will see in the units section of this review, this upgrade is excessively costly for a mere 6+, in my opinion at least. Then we have the Doc's Tools. This is available to Pain Boys only and grants the model and any unit he is attached to Feel No Pain for as long as the Pain Boy is alive. Not much to say on this that I won't cover in greater context when I talk about the units that can take it. Next in our list of fun, we have the Git Finder. If a model with this item remains stationary in the movement phase, the ballistic skill is increased to 3. Increased to 3, you say? Yep. Orcs can't shoot for toffee. At least they don't need to weigh the penalties for jinking like Marines do. They're near enough snap shooting all the time. They'd have as much accuracy throwing handfuls of bullets at their enemy. But that's an aside. This item would be good on a big mech with some kind of big gun, a shock attack gun perhaps. Chuck him in a squad of looters or such like and enjoy hitting things on a 4-up. The only shame is this only affects the model equipped with it and is not a squad buff. Then we have the Custom Force Field, which projects a 6-inch bubble in which all friendly units receive a 5-up invuln against shooting attacks. If the bearer is embarked on a vehicle instead, the vehicle receives the 5+ invuln. I could see this being useful on a big mech hanging around with some looters in the back lines, protecting them from heavier weapons and bombardment that is bound to be landing on their heads. Alternatively, as a bubble to protect your Death Star as you move across the board to punch the snot out of someone. We then have the Mech's Tools, which, like the Doc's Tools, is limited to, well, mechs. It's what they do, really. In each of your shooting phases, instead of firing his weapon, a model equipped with the Mech's Tools can attempt a repair on a single friendly vehicle that he is in base-to-base contact with, or embarked upon. On a d6 roll of 5+, a single hull point, or weapon destroyed result can be restored that was lost earlier in a game. Following the Mech's Tools, we have the Rocket Pack, which while has the effect of turning its user to jump infantry, is not exactly the same thing of elegance or even comparative crudeness of Imperial technology. No, the Rocket Pack is literally a rocket, filled with highly volatile chemicals, that is strapped to the back of a Storm Boy and they attempt to navigate and control the velocity and trajectory of the pack once engaged, to varying degrees of success. We then have the Waaagh banner, which grants the squad in which it's been taken +1 weapon skill. Seems a fair enough buff, but orcs on the tabletop have an issue of staying on the tabletop. I will discuss this in a moment, but their armor is slightly less effective than simply relying on Gork or Morg to protect you. As such, sinking too many upgrades into squads can be a massive waste. Additionally, weapon skill suffers hugely from ineffective returns compared to ballistic skill. If you're BS 9, you're almost guaranteed to hit your target, whereas the difference between the highest possible and lowest possible weapon skill roll requirements is 3 to 5 on a d6. This item is not worth the points investment in my opinion. Finally, in this section we have a war bike. Taking a war bike changes your unit's type from infantry to bike. Check the Warhammer 40k rulebook to understand the implications of this change. Being mounted on a bike increases the rider's toughness by 1 and gives them a 4-up armor save. You also get to Jink, which, referring back to my comments on the Gits Finder, has very little comparative downside for orcs. To further ease any decision to your jinking, you also have a twin-linked Dagger gun. So as with everything orc, twin-linking anything is never a bad thing. Moving on to armor, orcs can base with a mighty battle t-shirt and bad attitude to keep them safe. If you want more than this, however, you can pay for heavy armor, which will give the wearer a 4+ save. Personally, rarely would I fork out for this on standard boys. To sound harsh, they just aren't worth the points protecting them. Strength in numbers is key. As the value of a model or unit increases, the decision to protect them becomes more justifiable. Knobs and certain HQ choices also have access to Mega Armor, which grants a 2+ save, is bulky, and makes the unit slow and purposeful. I'm not a fan of Mega Armor. It's extremely expensive on points. You don't get an invuln, and you get hits with slow and purposeful to boot. This means you're going to need a delivery method. To do so, you're looking at a battle wagon. You could take a truck, but again, if you've invested in Orkinators, don't get them exploded because you were cheap on their wheels. For those heading to the comments to shout at me about Gazgul, patience, I'm coming to that later. In addition to the previously discussed war gear, certain codex entries have access to runts and squigs. Now, Orc society has a very simple hierarchy. The bigger you are, the more important you are. The Orkoid species seems to innately recognise and adhere to this. That isn't to say Orc politics are entirely harmonious or socially fair. If a slightly smaller Orc likes his chances in a fight with a bigger Orc, he might well take a pop at him. If he loses, it might mean a trip to the Pain Boy. However, if he wins, thanks to the Gestalt belief of the massed Orc psyche that you can only be the best if you're the biggest, the smaller Orc will actually grow in size, thus elevating his social position. There are, however, some unfortunate members of the Orkoid race that are doomed to live their life at the bottom of the pile. This could be the life of slave labour, and try not to get clobbered into mush, or in worse cases, they could end up being food for large members of the society. On the tabletop, these lowly members of the Orkoid race can be taken as upgrades to certain units, providing the following buffs. An ammo runt is one use only and provides a twin-linked shooting attack when used. An attack squig is a little better than ammo runt and allows a single reroll to hit in each melee turn. Bomb squigs are one use only and cannot be used as snapshots or to target flyers, flying monstrous creatures, or skimmers. The attack squig has an 18-inch range, strength 8, AP 4 attack with the assault 1 profile, and the hilarious scuttle scuttle blam rule, which is great as means that you always hit on a roll of 2 up, which off the top of my head probably makes this the best shooting attack in the entire codex. Moving on, we have a Grot Oiler. This is again one use only and allows a reroll of a failed uses with mechs tools. I don't know about this one. It's not expensive, but how much more you want to invest on keeping stuff alive is up to you. I've never taken these myself. A Grot Orderly is a bit better than a Grot Oiler, as, while one use only, it allows a reroll of a single failed Feel No Pain for a Pain Boy when any squad it is attached to. This is more points, but perhaps that little extra protection for your Death Star? I'm going to say this one is situationally dependent, but has potential. Last but not least in this section, we have a Squighound. Do you have problems with ill-disciplined boys in your army? Do they run at the first sign of danger? Well, sir, do I have the product for you. Introducing the new and improved range of Squighounds, specifically trained squigs taught specifically to attack and possibly devour any cowardly grot in your army. Each time a unit with a Squighound fails a morale check, it suffers D6, Strength 3, AP 0 hits, and must re-roll the morale test. If the test is failed again, no further re-rolls or further attacks are inflicted. While totally Orky, I don't tend to take these. If my knob with a boss pole doesn't do the job, Mork obviously doesn't want those boys to be there. So far I've mentioned a number of Ork transport options to get your boys into punching distance. So now I'm going to talk about your options to pimp your ride. I'm sorry. First up, the Ard case. Adding this to a vehicle means it is no longer open tops, whilst providing an extra degree of protection for both the vehicle and those inside it. I'm really unsure about this one. Orc shooting only works by weight of numbers, so if you protect your freeboots or someone embarked, you're sacrificing a quantity of shots to fire points. Plus, if you're using a vehicle to get your boys into charging range, you would lose the ability to get into combat on your turn. Unless there's a specific circumstance, I'd probably give this a miss. Option the second is a boarding plank. This allows disembarking units from an open-topped vehicle plus 2 inches to the distance charged to a maximum of 12 inches. Well, all I've been saying about getting to orcs into combat so they can show weakling Humis the true meaning of the term Imperial Fisting or Pain Glove, you'd think I'd be for this item, but it's simply way too expensive for not enough buff. I'll cover the cost of the items in the unit profiles of vehicles that can access them. The next option is one of the most disappointing for me, and aesthetically I think some of the most fun, and given the choice I'd model almost everything with it, the Death Roller. A vehicle with a Death Roller treats the front armor as too high than normal when ramming. In addition, if an enemy makes a Death or Glory attack on a vehicle with a Death Roller and fails to stop it, then it suffers D3 Strength 10 AP4 hits in addition to the damage they would normally suffer for a failed attack. Furthermore, a vehicle with a Death Roller can re-roll failed dangerous terrain tests. Basically, ramming is so rarely seen in the game, and Death or Glory is seen even more infrequently, at least in my games. In short, it's too expensive, and the bonus to provide is so rarely used. Fortunately for me, neither I nor the people I tend to play with enforce WYSIWYG, so Death Rollers for everything. Following the disappointment of Death Rollers, we have a moment of deja vu in the Grabbing Claw. The rules state that at the beginning of the enemy movement phase, nominate a single enemy vehicle that is within 2 inches of the vehicle's Grabbing Claw. On a roll of 4+, the vehicle may not move this turn. This cannot target flyers or skimmers. Basically, looks cool on your model, but is way too circumstantial to pull off in the first place, with only a 50% chance of it working, even if you can maneuver yourself into a position that you could try. Plus, not targeting skimmers cuts out a huge chunk of tanks that you might want to target with it. In short, skip it. The next upgrade is for flyers only, and that is Fly Boss, which gives units with this upgrade BS3 against jetbikes, skimmers, other flyers or flying monstrous creatures. I'm actually going to say yes on this one. Flyers have limited use in games, in my opinion, even with the new Death from the Skies rules. So when you get the opportunity to lay down some hurt and you're not perpetually out of position, you really want to make it count. This is doubly so when we talk about Waaagh planes, which you will find out when we get to Dakka jets. Upgrade the 6th is Grot Riggers, which gives a vehicle it will not die. Obviously this means you keep your tank on the board for longer. However, I'd only really bother with this if it's something really worth keeping, such as a Stomper or maybe Gorkanaut or Morkanaut. Perhaps a push at a battle wagon if you've got some nice shooty upgrades on it. Orcs have, as some of you might know, a latent communal psychic link. They're not aware of this, of course, but it allows them to manifest actual effects on the material realm. There are a number of staples of Orc belief. Bigger is better, there is never enough Dakka, and red things go faster. As a result of this belief, Orc things that are painted red do actually go faster as a result of the cumulative belief that it will happen. Great lore. Love everything to do with it. Completely worthless upgrade though. Red paint job. +1 to flat out. You're having a laugh, right? Skip it. Next in our list is Reinforced Ram. This does exactly what the Death Roller does, but without the extra D3 attacks for a failed Death or Glory attempt. As with my thoughts on the Death Roller, ramming is so rarely seen in my games, it's useless unless you have points to burn, which I can think of a plethora of more interesting things to spend on. I'd probably skip this. The penultimate vehicle upgrade I'm going to be talking about here is the Stick Bomb Chucker, which grants any unit disembarking from a vehicle armed with this to be treated as having stick bombs. It's okay in certain circumstances. You really have to consider what you're putting it on and who's going to be charging out of it, and how useful assault grenades would be to them. I've never taken this upgrade, however, I'm always scraping for every point I can find in my lists anyway. The final item is a Wrecking Ball, which is an extra weapon that has a 3-inch range. It's Strength 9, AP 4, Assault 3, D3, so not too shabby stats, and looks great on a model. However, I'm kind of meh about it, as it's just too circumstantial. Generally, your trucks will be the most likely recipient of this. I just want them the hell out of the way after they've delivered their cargo. I don't want them in melee range getting in the way of my charges, and even worse, getting attacked right next to my boys in melee and getting blown up. No, that's too niche for my tastes. Had it been a 6-inch range on the attack, perhaps I could see more merit in it. Now I'm going to talk about the gifts of Gork and Morg, which are the relics of the Orcs, and only available to HQs. So let's start with the Thinking Cap. Purchasing this item allows the generation of an additional Warlord trait from the Strategics Traits table from the main rulebook. If you roll a double of what you've already rolled for your Warlord, you re-roll the result. The re-roll wouldn't affect me, as for good or bad, I only ever take faction-specific Warlord traits, because that's just how I roll. As for the item, it's okay. You could unlock something fancy, and for 10 points, you could do worse, but if you had points to burn, and didn't fancy any of the alternate relics for your Warlord. The next item is Warlord Gazbag's Blitzbike, which for 35 points give the rider, and the rider alone, not a buff to the squad he's attached to, the ability to turbo boost 18 inches instead of 12. It comes with a twin-linked custom Dakka Blaster, which are 24-inch Strength 6, AP 3, Assault 3, but the guns are the only redeeming feature of this relic in my opinion. If you're running your war boss on a bike, you'd want him to be with his boys as bodyguard, not outgoing lone wolf, and for 35 points? No, way too expensive for my liking. The guns are nice, but it doesn't alter the fact that Orcs can't be relied on to hit the broadside of a super tanker when they need to. I'd probably skip this. Following this, we have the Lucky Stick, which is one of the most commonly fielded relics. It grants +1 weapon skill to the bearer, which is not cumulative with the Waaagh banner previously discussed. My point about the weapon skill upgrades being equally applicable to this item. In addition, however, the bearer can reroll any failed to hit or to wound rolls, or any saving throws they make. However, should 3 or more rerolls generate failed results in the same turn, the model immediately is removed as a casualty with no saves of any kind allowed. So, luck dependent, you get infinite rerolls, plus a weapon skill buff for 25 points. I could see a case for this item. It has potential to make it back its points investment many times over. On a tangent, harking back to ye old days of 2nd edition that I played as an early teen, I had Ghazghkull, and I believe the Makari model. Definitely Ghazghkull, with his stupid metal gun pointing in one direction and a knife in the other. People hark back to those days, but I promise you, we're in a golden age of models from Games Workshop. It's all relative, I suppose. Back then, we thought it was so cool. I mention this as the fluff of this relic is that the lucky stick is Makari's banner pole. Makari was Ghazghkull's pet grot, at least until he got Saturn. Read the fluff, it's funny. I won't do so here as the review section is already long enough. Back on topic, and we're talking about Headwhopper's Kill Chopper, because why wouldn't we? This is strength +2 AP5 two-handed with rending and decapitating strike special rule. This rule grants instant death on a to-wound roll of a 6. To be honest, at 20 points, I'm sticking with my standard claw, which would be strength 10 AP2 on my war boss. I'll skip this. The penultimate relic is the Fixer Uppers, which is simply mechs tools, which I talked about earlier, that succeed on a 3+ instead of a 5+. For 15 points, I don't know. If you want a proper invulnerable Stomper or Gorkanaut or something, maybe. I've never taken it, put it that way. It's not implicitly bad, it's just not something that would attract my attention. And finally, the last gift of Gork and Mork is the Dead Shiny Shooter, which is, as you might have guessed, a gun. It has range 18, strength 4, AP 6, assault 6, twin linked, with the stray shot special rule, and comes in at a meager 5 points. All good, right? Assault 6 is awesome. And Steve, don't you always say orcs need twin linking everything? Well, yes I do. And this is super cheap. However, it comes with quite a kicker in the stray shot rule. Roll a d6 for each time you fail to hit after rerolls, which for orcs will probably be quite frequently. For each roll of a 1, a friendly unit within 6 inches of your target suffers a single hit as if they were hit by the weapon. Fortunately, neither the wielder nor any unit it is attached to can be targeted by this rule. Orcs have a lot of models on the table. It's not unreasonable to expect that you might see some collateral damage with this gun. It's only 5 points, but I'd probably give it a miss personally. Shooting your own people is a guard thing to do. Orcs would at least have the decency to scrap it out, with the victor being the last person standing, or in enough pieces to stand. I've mentioned a couple of times how the combined Gestalt psychic communion of the orcs and its ability to influence the world around them. But do orcs have actual psychic powers that can be focused and stuff? Well, yes sir they do. And while they're not Eldar or Astartes space magic, orcs can still have some fun. They have their own magic school named the Power of the Waaagh, which is wielded to varying success by weird boys. The primaris of this school is Frazzle, which is a Warp Charge 1, 24-inch range Witchfire spell that has the profile Strength 6, AP 3, Assault 1, Blast. Not bad, however, once you manifest on a 4-up, you then need to hit on a 5-up, then wound, and then armor and cover saves. You get the spell for free, so sure, have a pop at someone if you have some spare warp charges, but don't expect the results the majority of the time. The first random power is called Edbanger, which is Magic Charge 1 focused Witchfire and has 24-inch range, and forces the target to pass a toughness test or suffer a wound with no armor or cover saves allowed. Like the Primaris, you have to keep in mind that it's a 4+ to manifest, 5+ to hit because Orc, 6+ if you actually want to hit your intended target, and then your target needs to fail the toughness test. I don't know, maybe I'm just jaded from too many vengeful dice rolls, but it seems like there's too many rolls with too slim odds. Personally, I'd be tempted to put my magic point elsewhere, like force on your weapon, but have a go. If it works, it could be fun. You only throw one dice at it, so you're safe from perils. The second power you might generate is one I like a lot more than the previous two discussed. Warpath is a blessing, so no rolling to hit nonsense, that grants the caster and his unit +1 attack if they have the "Here we go" rule on their profile. A warp charge 1, if you get this, you're happy. Space magic power the third is the Jump, which is another blessing that targets the caster and any squad to which it is attached. It allows you to remove the affected models from the board and immediately deep strike them elsewhere, with the usual deep strike penalties applying. However, in addition, if a double is rolled for your scatter, the models can only make snapshots until the start of the next turn. As Warp Charge 1, this could be circumstantially useful. Snapshots wouldn't affect most boys, given Ork BS is so bad. However, this would be a nice delivery system for burner boys, if it weren't for the snapshot limitation, which would hurt them badly. I guess the answer is not to roll badly. With the fourth power, we're ramping up the Warp Charge points. The remaining 3 are all Warp Charge 2. First of these is Kill Bolt, which is a beam with a range of 18 inches, has Strength 10, AP 2, and is Assault 1. This is great as you don't need to worry about rolling to hit, and it will kill most things it hits, including standing a good chance against even the toughest vehicles. We also have a chance of randomly generating Power Vomit, which is listed as a Witchfire spell that uses the Flamer template. It is Strength 7, AP 2, Assault 1. I'm not 100% sure on the rules for this, to be honest. My instinct would be that if it uses the Flamer template, you automatically hit anything under it. However, in writing this review, I am now wondering if you should roll to hit your stated target, and if you do hit it, anything else clipped by the template also gets hits for free. If the latter is the case, my comment about the 4+ manifesting and 5+ to hit, not good. If it is a standard Flamer template, groovy. Upchuck to your heart's content. Perhaps someone could clarify this in the comments? And finally, for the Space Orcs, or Sporks, magic powers, we have the Crunch, which is a Witchfire with a profile of 24 inches, strength 2d6, AP 4, assault 1, large blast, barrage. If you roll an 11 or 12 for the strength, obviously this exceeds the maximum allowed in the game. Resolve the hit at strength 10, and then start the process again with a free second hit at random strength. Keep applying free hits until such time as you roll 10 or under, or your original target is destroyed. The possibility for hilarity is there with the possibility of infinite strength 10 attacks, but only AP 4, so you're not going to be stomping marines or blowing up tanks. And 4+ then scatter, not great in my opinion. Have a go at it if you draw this card, but don't expect the results you're excited about with the free attacks. I'm not good at statistics, but I imagine successfully rolling 4+, then low enough not to scatter, then rolling 11 or 12, then rolling 11 or 12 again, is statistically inconsequential. Or maybe it's just dice hate me. So the takeaway from Psychic, Warpath and Killbolt are the winners from my perspective. The Jump could be situationally useful. Everything else, because you're playing Orcs, and why the hell not? But keep enough dice back for Force, as it will probably be more reliable. Well done to anyone who has stuck with me in this review segment for this long. I expect following sections to be considerably shorter, don't worry. We're currently a little short of 40 minutes in, and we've yet to cover the Army Special Rules, but we're nearly there. And no, time spent is non-refundable. You can't have it back. So on to the Army Special Rules, and then I'll let you get back to your lives. I've mentioned these rules a number of times in this review, but have left them for last so they're freshest in your mind. First we have Here We Go, which allows you to re-roll a dice with determining charge range. Not exactly fleets, but most infantry has it, and it's little something to help this melee-focused army. Second is the promised Waaagh rule, which allows your warlord, if they have access to the rule, once per game at the start of any of your turns after the first, to call a Waaagh. For the remainder of that turn, any models with the Here We Go rule can charge in the assault phase even if they ran. This, coupled with Prophet of the Waaagh, also makes the troops affected by this fearless. The third and last thing to remember is mob rule. This is important, as it is one of the defining choices in your army composition and war gear of how much you want to mitigate the impact of it. So, if a unit fails a morale or pinning test, which they do a lot, roll a d6 immediately and consult the following results. If you roll a 1, you get Born to Fight. If the unit is locked in combat, it counts as having passed. If not locked in combat, it fails the test and appropriate implications apply. If you roll a 2 to 3, you get the Breaking Head result. If the unit contains one or more Ork characters, it suffers d6 Strength 4 AP 0 hits and is treated as if passed the test. Hits are randomly allocated but cannot target their character model. If the unit has no character, then the test has failed. On a roll of 4 to 6, if the unit has 10 or more models, the rules for Breaking Heads apply. If the squad has less than 10 models, it fails the test. So from what I take away from this is that you always want to include a character, which is fortunate as I always take a knob where possible in squads anyway. Granted, you might lose a model or two to Breaking Heads, but it keeps you in a fight. And the other takeaway is to stack units big. Granted, you'll be limited to 12 if you want them mech'd up, but that tactic is a trade-off for the protection of a delivery system. I've covered a number of items of war gear that allow rerolls on this chart, which on the face of it you would think is a worthwhile investment. I would simply urge caution. You could be taking 6 squads of 12 to 20 boys. If each knob is kitted out to the best they could be, doubling or tripling their base cost, and you then multiply that cost by 6, you could be seeing a huge chunk of your points gone just to keep the boys in the fight. And if you lose your knob from that squad, you've lost all that investment. Build your army your way and experiment and have fun. Just keep in mind orcs are extremely good at dying, and it's all too easy to lose your point sync model. So there we have it. I've covered special issue war gear, warlord traits, space magic, vehicle equipment, formations, tactical objectives, and army special rules, not to mention squigs and runts. There will now be a pop quiz with the lowest scorers having to attend to the Snotling farms. Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Do you have your own suggestions on how to utilise a rule or piece of war gear that I've missed? Let us know and together we can all improve our games. That's me done for now. I appreciate your taking the time to listen to me ramble on. I hope you enjoyed the content and I welcome your constructive feedback and discussion in the comments below. If you liked this video, hit like. If you like my content, hit subscribe. Both help me know what is working. I have been Steve, this has been the SDFnet 40k channel, and I will see you next time. The Emperor protects.